back to Analyze on TV1 Canada. We've been talking about a groundbreaking experiment called the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. And it's all over the web. Feel free to look it up. It's on Wikipedia and a whole bunch of other sources. Speaking of children, Joel, and your experience as a teacher in school, how do you see that relationship between children who are able to withhold gratification, who have the self-discipline?
Oh, I see the ones that are able to withhold or delay gratification as being a lot more successful. They put a lot more work into their...
Right in school, right?
Oh, yeah,
right
in
now.
the classroom.
Okay.
You know, even with the daily work or long-term assignments, you know, and any teacher will tell you this, I'm sure, that the kids who can delay the gratification will be the ones who will put more work into their assignments. They'll focus more on the task at hand. They'll basically get, you know, better grades in the end, and they'll learn more in the end. It's not the grades that are the utmost thing, but it's the learning, and they learn more because they focus more. They get deeper into their subject.
So
compared to the ones who are, you know, they just like do the minimal, basically because they know if they finish this, they can have free time, right? Yeah. Or they can just, you know, go and play a game or something like that.
Right. So the ones who are able to sustain or delay the gratification of the video game or spare time, free time.
Oh, yes.
And who can sort of focus on the task at hand longer, use better results, get better grades.
Oh, yes.
And do you see this sustained? Do you see a child that's, you know, let's say you've taught them in grade 6 and then, you know, they displayed these characteristics. Do you see that also? You can,
well, I don't really keep in touch with the kids, but you can really predict how well kids are going to do.
Just through school, sort of 6, 7, 8, let's say.
Yes, yeah.
That's an interesting predictor of future outcome.
Oh, definitely. You can, I mean, most teachers will tell you they can sort of sense the ones that are going to be going on to higher education and, you know, in elementary school. I'm an elementary school teacher, but, and part of it is from this, you know, delay of gratification, the ability to focus more on the task at hand.
Interesting. So here's an outcome that is the result of a very important outcome, an educational outcome, a learning outcome from that quality of self-discipline.
Yes.
You know, I read that they've been trying to inculcate this as a component within education in Korea, and I believe they've been trying this in other places as well. And this experiment is interesting because it's such a it has been running for such a long time. It's such a repeated experiment that the results are sort of not, you know, controversial. They're very well established. Osama, in terms of that experiment, just sort of looking at it once again as the idea of hypothesis testing. So here is a hypothesis or a statement in the Quran, treated as a hypothesis, let's say. As human beings, you know, we like to, you know, we like to doubt. I mean, a bit of healthy critical thinking, this is what the program is about, involves a certain amount of doubt, a certain amount of openness to the prospect that you might be wrong about something. And so therefore, when you actually come back and you reinforce those that, you know, that your ideas, they're even more founded. How does hypothesis testing, if you will, you know, how does that play into the idea of belief as described in the Quran, or the notion of belief as defined in the Quran?
Actually, the whole Quranic invitation to think, an invitation to reflect, an invitation to understand, can be actually reduced to this modern expression of hypothesis testing. But if we, in the sense of the essential meaning, but if we reflect, actually, I think the Quran is more direct, more natural. You know, if you talk to the man in the street about hypothesis testing, it doesn't matter how great this expression is, perhaps he wouldn't get the idea.
Yeah, so let's explain that. Let's explain that.
Yes.
What do we mean by hypothesis testing? Please go ahead and explain that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea, of course, of hypothesis testing is that you know, as we are building our knowledge about something, actually this is the latest knowledge, because the latest development in these areas would say, you know, some people used to say, well, you observe something and then you have an idea about that something, and then you think about how this work and so forth, and then you have a particular idea of how these things work. But now we know better that the human mind is never empty. As you are observing, of course, you are thinking. So you have to come in with some thinking. You have to come in with some thought. So you have to come in, so to speak, with some hypothesis. Hypothesis basically is an idea that is not fully tested yet. It's an idea.
It's a theory. It's an idea about how something works. You have a guess.
It will develop into a theory as a result of your seeking. When it becomes theory, of course, it becomes then a part of knowledge that is, you know, initially this confirmed and subject to perhaps repetition and confirmations and so forth. But look at how the Quran puts this thing. I always used to say that there is no book of science, there is no lecture of science as strongly, deeply inviting people to think as indeed the book that is the last revelation that was presented to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we look at the verse, for example, which says, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ, translated closely, this verse says, and do not follow that upon which you have no knowledge. Now, emphasize the word knowledge. If you have no knowledge, then you cannot, so to speak, formulate your hypothesis or theory. So you have to have knowledge. And Allah is telling us, don't follow your just whims and whatever it is they come without making sure that this constitutes knowledge. And then the verse, of course, explains what does that mean. It says, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ, and then it says, إِنَّ السَّمْعَ, indeed, the faculty of hearing, the faculty of hearing. When we talk about hearing here, we are not talking about your outer apparatus, the ears as your receptor of sounds and so forth. We are talking about the whole system that's connected to your brains and mind. That's why it's a faculty of the whole faculty of hearing, which is part of the idea of thought. So it is not the fact that the sounds bounces on your ear, but it's the fact that the sounds is processed in your mind as ideas and verified. That's why you have a responsibility. So, so indeed, the faculty of hearing, the faculty of vision also, the same thing goes with vision, and the faculty of thinking and feeling, you know, that means consciousness and all together. All these things the Quran says, you are responsible concerning it. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَئِكَ, all those كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. The individual is indeed accountable for all those things.
So there's a moral imperative here as well. It is not just a matter of use reason so that you get ahead in life. It's also use reason because you are morally
accountable. Because that's because your main purpose here is to reason. Because Allah created you this way. You know, as you have eyes to see, you have your total cognitive system to think and to live and to understand everything, including, of course, what is behind all that, which is really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's how, when you submit and surrender, indeed, when you become a Muslim in that sense, the word Islam, to submit and surrender to that, you are actually submitting and surrender to your own nature, which is the nature which was done by Allah. And as a result of that nature, you are rewarded. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, actually, you may not actually deserve those rewards because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have created you, but yet you are also rewarded for that. And you are also, you know, kind of given a high position because of that. Although all the work is done for you already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fascinating insights about the Quran and its findings in cognitive science. When we come back after these messages, we'll be talking more about cognitive science and the Quran.